Hello, this is Linda Vettrus-Nichols, and do I have an amazing person to introduce you to, Michael Padurano. Welcome, Michael. Michael, you have a new name, Michael.
There you
Are you
go.
in Japan?
I'll answer to almost anything. I have an ex-wife to prove it. So
Yeah, right. Oh man. All right. So, Michael, the journey, and you have had quite the journey of transformation. And yeah, share a little bit with all of us, if you
a little bit. So
will.
we'll cover a few things, right?
Yeah.
So I was adopted at birth. My adoptive mother abused me for my first physically abused for the first 9 years, emotionally abused for the first 14.
Oh,
I had multiple near-death experiences, over 15 of them now, looking
wow.
back over the course of my life. My first one was at 3.5, 4 years old. And from that moment, I came back 100% spiritually awake. All my
Wow.
all my gifts were presence, my knowings, my claircognizant abilities, everything, my
Yeah.
healing, all of it. And being a 4-year-old, for argument's sake, in that environment, I never felt comfortable being there ever.
Sure.
And I started thriving at being another, and started to rebel because it was the only way I knew how to react.
Okay.
So I started drinking at 9, doing hardcore drugs by 12.
Oh,
Got
wow.
got sober at 27, and been sober since.
Nice.
And
Congrats.
thank you. And I've been through a lot. I mean, I've been through many, many horrible relationships, trying to replace bad dynamic after bad dynamic. A lot of self-education. I got thrown out of 2 high schools, never graduated, made my first $1 million by 21.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Love it.
so built many businesses, maybe 20 or 30 over the course of the last, probably
Wow.
more than that actually, because busy of them was definitely one of my escapisms also.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
so, I've done everything from being a bag boy at a grocery store at 30 to
Yeah.
doing keynote speaking for the UN at, 4 different years in all different places in the world.
Cool.
Um, had over 35 government contracts at one point.
Wow.
Did press conferences, was working with AIG and Credit Suisse and Lloyd's of London, doing a whole
Yeah.
bunch of finance stuff for bridges, roads, hospitals, schools, energy plants, renewable energy stuff, transferring technology from developed to underdeveloped countries. I mean, there's
Nice.
just many different things I've done in my life.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's always been about impact, which I never understood, right? It's
Interesting.
and I can now, looking back, right, because hindsight's 2020, I can see my path of why I did certain things the way I did, and the
Right.
lessons I needed to learn along the way.
Yeah.
Um, my journey has taken me everywhere. It's all over the place. I've been everywhere. I've done everything. I was in beginning of COVID. I went out to Arkansas to fight for custody of my kids because they were getting abused by their mother and her boyfriend. I
Right.
spent 17 and a half months fighting for them, and was stranded out there the whole time and lost everything again.
Oh,
I've been a millionaire on paper, or a lot more on paper, 3 times, and homeless 5 times.
wow.
So I've been through it all,
Yeah.
and I've watched it all, and I've learned, and I've observed that, the key to my life today is self-awareness,
It
is
is.
really, really to pay attention to my own patterns and behaviors, and
Yeah.
to inspire others to do the same, living in my truth, and really just sharing from my soul. I don't believe in
Hmm.
a heart space. I go straight to the soul space.
Yeah.
I believe in a level deeper, and that's just where I go, everywhere, anytime, all the
Yeah.
time. I
Right.
love the woo woo. Take me as deep as you want to go, and I'll go. It's
All
okay.
right.
I don't care about, what people want to hear. I share what people are meant to hear. And
Mm.
whether they're ready to listen to it at that time or sometime down the line, that's when they hear it.
Yeah. Doesn't make you real popular.
No, no, it doesn't. And
Yeah.
that's okay too,
Yeah.
because the reality is I love myself today, and
Yeah.
I know my worth, and I know my value, and I understand why I'm here, and I live into my soul's purpose to the best of my ability every day.
Right. Yeah. And for
So
me, I reflect people back to themselves, and that's not real popular either.
no,
They don't really
no,
like
that
to see themselves.
the mirror's challenging at times, isn't it?
Yeah, people don't like to stand in front of themselves in the mirror, that's for sure. Yeah, in fact,
What's
that mirror work is like a thing, you know, like stand
Mhm.
there and say this to yourself. But it's like, well, just realize that if you don't like somebody, there's stuff in you that they're
Mhm.
reflecting back to you that you don't like. It's like you don't like you. So what parts of it, you know, are there? The most um fascinating, as well as what I liked the most when I was studying the Bible was you know, like, okay, so and so murdered so and so, and it's like, oh, you know, I would never do that, and it's like, oh, really? You know, well, where in your life have you done this or this or this? You know, and I loved those lessons from BSF. That was very cool. Yeah, it really opens you up to accepting others and staying in your own lane and focusing on yourself and what is it that isn't serving you from yourself, if you will. So yeah, I love that. Quite the journey, sir. Quite the journey. And you've also done a lot of transformation through your children, especially now having them back in your life. You want to speak to that a little bit, Michael?
Every day, they're my greatest teachers, right? They're three different personalities, different mirrored
Yeah.
versions of me, right? So,
Yeah.
when I find myself yelling at Thomas, and I'm really looking at him like he's a 10-year-old version of me in many ways, except he's not drinking or starting to look at drugs.
Right.
So, and he's not looking to hide from his trauma either. He wants to heal it. He wants to heal through it.
Nice.
So
So
I
beautiful.
have I respect him more than probably any living human being on the planet, because at 10
Okay.
years old, to confront everything and be willing to take it on, um, I am so honored to be able to stand by his side and guide him.
Very
It,
beautiful.
it's the most magical experience of my life.
I love
People
it.
say it's complicated. I say it's life.
Yeah, for sure. And deal with it, right? And get over yourself and deal
Mhm.
with it.
Yeah, I
Right?
love it. I love
Yeah.
it. I mean, throw me in
Yeah.
the deep end. It's okay.
Yeah. You
I
shared a
thrive.
picture. You shared a picture of your little girl, your youngest, um, just sitting at the bottom of the steps, like, you know, this asleep
Yeah,
on
she was
the
she was
first
out
step.
cold. She was out cold. She
Yeah.
was sleeping, and like it was that's just the energy release, right? Like
Yeah.
she's nonstop, 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 and then falls on her face,
Yep.
right? And
Yep. Totally refusing sleep and then all of a sudden out.
yes, and I look at her and I'm like, I mean, I yell at her sometimes just because it's the only reaction I have, and I've learned
Yeah.
that to show my anger and frustration through anger is through yelling is healthy.
Mhm.
As long as I own it, I'm accountable, and I explain it to them, and I apologize later,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't hit, I don't do threats of hitting, I don't play that game,
Yeah.
I don't curse at them, I just yell. I
Yeah.
scream at the top of my lungs to probably where neighbors are shaking their head, and I'm okay with that
Yeah.
because you know what? My kids are learning that it's okay to express every extreme. Like my
Right. And it's
she
not them or about them as much
right.
as it's you doing what you need to do.
Like she came up to me, I think a couple weeks ago, and looked at me and said, "F off, Dad." Except said it outright fully.
Nice.
And I just looked at her and I said, as upset as I could be, I'm excited that you feel safe enough to say that to me.
For
Like,
sure.
especially after everything you've been through. So, I mean, I was kind of proud and kind of ashamed and kind of
You're
excited all at
right.
the same time. It's like,
For sure.
wow,
I love
like
that.
my little 5-year-old is triggering me in all sorts of ways. Fantastic.
Buttons. I know Daddy's buttons. And who showed her
Mhm.
those buttons? I used to work with a guy who worked with parents of kids who were in the juvie system, and like his number one thing was question for him was, do you have any buttons your kids push? And like, yeah. And who showed them those buttons? What? He knew right where each set of parents fell, depending on or each parent fell depending on their answer. Like, he knew how much work he had to do based on their answers of his
Yes,
simple questions. It was really fascinating work that he had done. And he had
that's
one
awesome.
couple that was like totally freaked out that their kid was going to commit suicide. And his attitude was like, let her, like, back off the worry and just let her go for it, and they're like, what? And as soon as they started going, that is your choice to her, she chilled out. And now you got to realize that it was a manipulative type situation.
Right.
Still, it was really fascinating work that he did. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your journey of transformation with all of us. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.